To start the square, we are using a magic circle. And to make a magic circle, I take the yarn and I create a little cross over my fingers. And then I take the hook, insert it under the first cross, or the first leg of the cross, pull the other leg of the continuing yarn through, twist the hook so that I get a little loop, grab the continuing yarn and pull it through this loop. And then to start with round 1, I just want to make this knot a bit tighter, so that's all good. And now I have a bigger loop, and I start with single crochet and chain 2 4 times. Second time, and it's a bit fiddly in the beginning. Let me just close this a little bit so it's easier to grab. It's a bit fiddly in the beginning, but it'll get better later. It's just this first round where you've got almost nothing to hold on to. So I've got those 4 single crochet chain 2. Now I pull the yarn tight, or you pull the ring tight, and I insert the hook in the first loop that I left a bit bigger, and I like to work over my tail, over the end of the yarn, and I make a slip stitch, thereby closing round 1 and finishing it. An alternative to the magic circle is the double magic circle, where we cross twice in one, or we wrap the yarn twice in one direction, then I'm crossing. So and then I insert the hook under those 2 wraps, and I pull the yarn through so that I get a little loop here. And I go back to grab the yarn and pull it through this loop. Now I let go, make sure that the end is on the non-working side so that I can work over all 3 strands here. I'm going to pull this a bit tighter and start with the bigger loop, and like I did with a magic ring, I'm just going to work a single crochet chain 2 4 times into the ring, and it's important to go over all 3 strands. So if there is not much of it, let's see, we should be fine and be able to continue. It's just one more to go. So okay, so yeah, we made it. I was worried that this might not be long enough to work over. So to close this circle, this magic ring, magic circle, we start to pull on the tail to see which one of those wraps is going to close first. Then we grab the one that closed first and make sure not to pull on the right side, so that we're not shortening this side, but we are shortening the other wrap. See how the other wrap now closes. Now we can pull it tight, and now we've got this big loop, and by pulling on the tail we close that. I'm going to be working over the rest of this tail until it's all gone, until it's all worked away. But first I'm going to insert the hook into the first single crochet, grab this and let it just be in the background, and close round 1 with a slip stitch, and that's it. It's very simple. In round 2 we're going to create a free front loop, but first we make a chain 1 and then we work into the chain 2 corner space with a single crochet, chain 2 and another single crochet in the same chain 2 space, and then make sure to find the first free front loop. I'll just have the end of the tail in the background continuing to work over it, and we work in the back loop only of the next stitch of this single crochet here, and then we're already in the corner again, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, and in the back loop only all the way around. Chain 2, single crochet, another one, back loop only, and then again the corner, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, continuing to work over my tail here. And then the last can be a bit difficult to see. Don't mistake the last stitch with this one. This is only the chain with which we went up into the next round, in this case into round 2. This is the last stitch. This was the single crochet that we made before we made the slip stitch, before we closed the round with a slip stitch. So I'm just using this back loop only. I'm going to skip this chain and I go in both loops of the first single crochet that we made into the chain 2 corner space and close the round with a slip stitch, and that is round 2. Round 3 is also starting with a chain 1 like every round, and then a single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 2 corner space. Now the first stitch is a single crochet in the back loop only, and then a single crochet, back loop only, and then the corner. There we go. You do this 4 times. I will be speeding up this video to meet you at the end for the closing. So now I'm on the 4th side. I've made the first single crochet and back loop, single crochet and another back loop. And again, do not mistake this chain 1 with a stitch. We have this next stitch here, single crochet in the back loop, and then we skip this chain. We always skip this chain 1 and slip stitch directly into the first single crochet that we made in the corner. And that is round 3 finished. If you like to use stitch markers, I recommend to put some of them in now. There is one free front loop here in round 2, which is the front loop that's left over from the stitch in round 1 when we made single crochet in the back loop only in round 2. I like to put another one in on the 4th side because it's easy to mistake this free front loop with this, which is the chain 1, and here also is the chain 1. So, oh, sorry, here is the chain 1. So I put one on the fourth side as well, and I'm also using one in another color for this one here on the fourth side. And if you want to put them in those stitches from round 2, which are the free front loops that are left over from making single crochet and back loop in round 3, that's where you would place them. So just as an example here. Okay, and then we can continue. I will be taking them out because I find it very hard to work with them, and it's easier for me to find those free front loops, but I will leave these two in there. So as I said, I've already taken the stitch markers out again, and here in round 4 we're going to have our first special stitch. But first we start with a chain 1, and then with a single crochet, chain 2, single crochet in the chain 2 corner space. Then we continue with 2 single crochet, and make sure sometimes the second single crochet made in the chain 2 corner space likes to hide the first stitch. So make sure you pull this aside so that you find the first stitch. We start with 2 single crochet and then a treble, 0 minus 3 in front loop. So counting from the next stitch, we go 0 forwards or backwards, so it's 0. It's directly below the next stitch, and we count down 1, 2, 3 rounds. So this is the front loop that belongs to the first stitch. And we go into this, let me do it again here, so into this front loop, and we make a treble. Then, because this replaces this stitch, we skip this stitch behind the treble, and we finish with 2 more single crochets, and then we are in the corner. So this is going to be your round 4. We just continue, and then in the end, remember to always skip this chain 1 and to close the round with a slip stitch into the first single crochet of the starting corner. And that will be your round 4 finished then. So by making this treble in the front loop here in the previous round, we have created a space behind it where we have left an unworked stitch. And in this round we're going to close this gap. But first we start with 2 single crochet again, and then we make another treble in front loop, and it's also 0 minus 3, which means we go 3 rounds below. 1, 2, 3, and here is a front loop that belongs to this round, and we make a treble in this front loop. By doing so, we replace this stitch, which we later will have to close with a gap as well. But now I'm here at the treble, and I'm going to make a DC BB, a double crochet behind and below. So I'm coming from behind, and I just grab these 2 loops, which means I've got for sure the right top loops of the stitch, and I just work a double crochet into this stitch. and then I make another treble 0 minus 3 in this front loop here. So you see, with the DCBB, I'm just skipping the stitch in front. Here I'm skipping the stitch behind, and when I make a DCBB, I skip the stitch in front. Sometimes that will be needed to work into, sometimes we work around the stitch, like we're going to do here, but it just leaves these stitches open. So now I have to make sure that I'm skipping the right amount of stitches. So this is the DC, the treble. So I definitely don't go in this one. And the next stitch is replaced by this treble, which means I should have 2 stitches in the end that I work single crochet into, which I have. Okay, and then I'm back in the next corner here. So that's your round 5. Starting with 2 single crochet, then you work the treble, make sure to find the right stitches to work into for the DCBB, then work another treble in front loop on the other side. So this is our middle, this is the axis, because we're working symmetrically. And then make sure to skip the right stitches, don't work into this one, and skip the next, and then you have 2 stitches left for single crochets. That's round 5, and at the end of round 5 you just close the round with a slip stitch in the first single crochet of the starting corner, and then we'll be together for round 6. So we are in round 6 now, where we're going to have a new special stitch. We start with 3 single crochet, and then we close the gap behind this treble here. We find the 3 front loops. If you're unsure, just do it as we did, as I showed you before. Come from the back and grab those 3 top loops, and then you can be sure to be in the correct stitch. Yeah. So after this, we skip this treble in the front here, in front of the DCBB, and then we're going to work a front post half treble around this next treble. Not around the next stitch, but the one that is 2 rounds below. So 1 round below was the DCBB, 2 rounds below is the treble that we made into this stitch from, into front loop of the stitch from round 1. We're going to work, do I have 1, 2, yeah, a half treble, which means we work through the last 3 loops on the hook. We could be making a front post DC because technically it's the same, but what I want is those 2 slings here, the part of the stitch, and I want a bit of height as well and some substance, which the DC does not give us for this. And now we're working in the back again to close the gap behind, grabbing those front loops or those top loops of the stitch that's 2 rounds below, and we finish as we started with 3 single crochet, and we're in the corner. So that's round 6. Also quite easy, very simple. We just close the gap with a DCBB, we work around with a front post half treble, and then close the gap again and finish with a single crochet. And just do this on the other 3 sides and then close around with a slip stitch into the first single crochet of the starting corner, and then we bead together for round 7. So here in round 7 we're going to create a few new back loops, or rather we create a few new free front loops. And we start with a single crochet, and here is our single crochet in the back loop only, which will give us a new free front loop later on. 2 more single crochet, and then we have a front post half treble around the stitch that is 2 rounds below. So you will see there is a lot of repetition of the stitches, only a few special stitches, and they repeat a lot. So just to make sure that we're finding the right spots, insert the hook from the back, and you see here is the stitch that is between those trebles, and these are the loops that belong to this stitch. We work into that one. Great. And then we have another front post half treble around the next stitch 2 rounds below. And you see that I'm a bit generous here. My tension is generally quite loose, but I'm extra generous here. So again, we need to make sure that we skip the right stitches and the right amount of stitches. This top is taboo. It belongs to this front post half treble. This is the stitch that we skip. So keeping that in mind, this is the next one. Just making sure we're in the correct stitch. 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet in the back loop only, and that leaves us with 1 more stitch to work a single crochet into, and then the corner. Just make sure to find the correct top loop to work into. Yeah, and then repeat on the other 3 sides, close with a slip stitch in the first single crochet of the starting corner, and meet me for round 8. If you want to use stitch markers, you can place them for round 9. We've got those 3 front loops, and those will be the places, the front loops that you can mark with your stitch markers. Here. As you can see, I've taken the stitch markers out again, because I prefer to just work directly into the front loop, and I find it quite easy to see, and you probably too. So let's go with that. We are in round 8 now, and you will find that the stitches we are going to use are always very similar. We start round 8 with a single crochet, and then a single crochet in the back loop only, 3 single crochet, and now we're closing those gaps again. We made the front post half treble in the previous round. Now we're going to grab those 3 front loops, those 3 top loops, and close them with a double crochet. The next stitch goes around this front post half treble, and it will be also a front post half treble. As you can see, I was very generous here with the yarn. And again, back to close the gap, working behind the stitch or in the back of the stitch, a double crochet into the stitch 2 rounds below. And then we're back here. So we skip the stitch in front of the DCBB and the stitch behind this front post half treble, and again in front of the DCBB. We continue with 3 single crochet, 1 in the back loop, and the last stitch is also a single crochet, and this is in the corner. So just work around your way and close with a slip stitch in the first single crochet of the starting corner, and then we'll continue with optional stitch marker placements for round 10. Actually, I'm just going to show you. So if you wanted to use stitch markers, you would probably have one here, and then one on the other side, and then you could place one here in a different color, maybe just to make it easier for you to find the correct stitch, only if you want to. In round 9 we are again working with the already known front post half treble, the DCBB, and treble in front loop. So let's start with a chain 1 and the corner, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 2 corner space, and then first stitch is a single crochet, then a single crochet in the back loop, another single crochet, and then we've got a treble, 0, minus 3. Starting to count from the next stitch, we go, which is this one, 1, 2, 3 down, and here is the free front loop in which we work a treble, 0, minus 3. Then we skip this stitch behind. See, this stitch we worked, this stitch we skip, and then we continue with 2 single crochet. Now we've got a front post half treble around the stitch that is 2 rounds below. Half treble, then we skip the stitch behind this half treble, and our next stitch is a DCBB. So we find that free, the stitch that we skipped in the previous round, and then we just work into those top loops. And again, a front post half treble around the next stitch. And then here, we have to be careful which stitches we skip like before. This is the treble, so we don't work into this one, and we skip this anyway because it's in front of the DCBB. And this one, the next one here, is the stitch we skip. So I just use my fingernail to mark the one that we need to work in. That's the first of 2 single crochet, and then the next stitch is again the treble, 0, minus 3. Oops, sorry. So that's 0, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, and here's the free front loop. And work into, and I lost one of my yarn overs. Here we go. A treble, 0, minus 3. We skip the stitch behind this treble and have a single crochet in the back loop, and another single crochet, and here's the corner. That's it for this round. Just make sure to find the correct stitch for the DCBB, and that you continue in the correct stitch after this front post half treble. Do it all do it all again on the other 3 sides, and then close the round with a slip stitch and meet me in round 10. If you are keen on using stitch markers, find the first free front loop, where you made a back loop, and put it in the free front loop, and there is another one at the end. So whenever you make a single crochet in the back loop, it will give you a free front loop, which means that something is going to be happening with those. Okay, so that's the stitch marker placement. All right, let's work round 10, starting with the chain 1 and then the corner, as always. Single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 2 corner space. Then we continue with a single crochet in the back loop only, and another single crochet. You'll notice that I have taken out the stitch markers again, so let's count. We want to make a treble 0 minus 3, so minus 1, minus 2, minus 3. Here is a free front loop. And over first. You work a treble 0 minus 3 in this free front loop. Then we skip the stitch behind this treble, and now we have a treble that we made in the previous round, and we're going to make a padding stitch to bring this more forward and to close the gap. So we find the free front loops of the stitch that we skipped, and we work a DC into that stitch. That's a DCBB. Now we skip this treble, the stitch in front of the DCBB, and we continue with 2 single crochet. And now we are here again, where we made a front post half treble in the previous round, and again we find the front loops of the stitch that we skipped, and we work a DCBB into that stitch. Now we skip the stitch in front of the DCBB again, and we work a front post half treble around the next stitch. That's 2 rounds below. In the previous round we had a DCBB, and in the round before we made another front post half treble, so that's 2 rounds below. Front post half treble 0 minus 2. Now we skip the stitch behind this front post half treble, and we work another DCBB behind this front post half treble. You see that free stitch, or those, I only need one yarn over. You see those loops peeking through here? I just grab these, and that's where I work the DCBB into. Skip the stitch in front, which is the front post half treble, and continue with 2 single crochet. And here again, you see this was our middle, so now we're working in the reverse order than we worked here. This is where we start, and now we're just working backwards in towards this corner in the reverse order, which means we make another DCBB behind this treble from the previous round, skip the stitch, skip this treble, and then work another treble 0 minus 3 in the next free front loop. Then we skip the stitch behind this treble, and we finish the side with a single crochet, back loop only, single crochet, and the first single crochet of the next corner. So that's our round 10. Continue on the other 3 sides. Close the round with a slip stitch in the first single crochet of the starting corner, and we continue with optional stitch marker placements. So if you want to use stitch markers, I recommend using another color now, color B. In my case, that's red. And just place it in that free front loop that you just created again. There's one at the beginning, and there's one here at the end. And that's your stitch marker placement for round 12 later on. All right, round 11, where we are going to fill a few more gaps. But first, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 2 corner space, then single crochet, back loop only, single crochet, a treble, 0 minus 3, and this free front loop here, a DCBB behind the next stitch. You see, we're only using a few stitches, just different combinations. And then the front post half treble, 0 minus 2 around the next stitch. We skip this stitch, 2 single crochet, then another front post half treble, a DCBB, front post half treble. You see, if you don't worry too much about skipping behind, in front, behind, it's just, we just make it continuous round, continuous stitches. But now you just need to be aware there are 2 single crochet in between this part and this part here. So we work into those 2 single crochets and then continue with a front post half treble, another DCBB, here they are, and a treble in front loop, and we finish with a single crochet, back loop only, single crochet, and we're in the corner. So there we are. Repeat this on the other 3 sides, close with a slip stitch, and then we place some stitch markers in this free front loop if you like, and we will straight continue into round 12. All right, let's do round 12 real slow, starting with a chain 1, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 2 corner space. Our first stitch is a special stitch, half treble plus 2 minus 2. So we go ahead from starting to count from the next stitch, 1, 2, and we go down, 1, 2, and here's a free front loop. We work into this free front loop, half treble. Then we skip this first stitch here and make a single crochet in the next. Now we've got a DC in the same front loop that we work the half treble into. Same front loop. Skip the stitch behind, then a treble in the next free front loop. So 1 ahead, and 1, 2, 3 down. Treble 0 minus 3. Here's our free front loop, and you may have a stitch marker in it. Skip the stitch behind here. Oh, sorry, we only need one, because we make a front post DC around the next stitch, which is the treble from the previous round. Front post DC. Skip the stitch behind. Next stitch, front post half treble around the next stitch here, which is the front post half treble from 2 rounds below. There is a DCB behind that, we skip that too. And another front post DC. So all together you will skip 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we work in the next, a single crochet, and also a single crochet in the one after. So 2 single crochet. Now we have another front post DC around the treble, the front post treble, half treble from the previous round. Skip this stitch behind. There is a DCBB behind this front post half treble, so we make a front post half treble around this stitch. And we skip the DCBB here as well. So there is a front post half treble from the previous round, and we make a front post DC around that. Now we skip 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. See, all together. Then 2 single crochet. And again a front post DC around this stitch here, which is the front post half treble from the previous round. And we skip the stitch behind here. There is a DCBB behind this front post half treble, so we make another front post half treble, because this front post half treble here, this here, is further down, so we need the height. There is a front post half treble from the previous round, around which we make a front post DC. Then we make a treble in the next free front loop. A treble 0 minus 3. 1, 2, 3 rounds below. That's the front post. That's the front loop. And a treble. And then we work a DC into the next front loop. Okay, so now we made 5 stitches. We have to skip 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches, and a single crochet in the next. And now we work backwards again, a half treble in the same stitch in which we made the DC. Half treble. And because we need to skip the stitch behind the front, the half treble in front loop, we are already in the corner. So that's your round 12. I'm going to make a crochet along side on side 2 now. Okay, let's go a bit quicker. Front post half treble in the first of those 3 front loops. Skip the stitch behind the front post half treble, single crochet. DC in the same front loop where you just made the half treble in front loop. Skip the stitch behind. Treble in the next 3 front loop. 0 minus 3. Skip the stitch behind. Front post DC. Skip the stitch behind. Front post half treble. Skip the stitch behind. Front post DC. Check that you skip 5 stitches. 2 single crochet starting from the next stitch. 1, 2. Front post DC. Front post half treble around the next stitch. Front post DC. Check that you skip 3 stitches, 2 single crochet starting from the next stitch. Another front post DC. Front post half treble. And one more front post DC. So you skip those 3 stitches, and then we have another treble in the next 3 front loop. Skip the stitch behind the treble and make a DC in the next 3 front loop, which is 2 rounds below. Now you should skip 5 stitches altogether, single crochet in the next. There is only 1 more stitch to go, and we make a half treble in the same front loop that we just made a DC into. And then we're in the corner. So if you followed along the first and the second side, you only have 2 more sides to go, and then you slip stitch into the first single crochet of the starting corner, close around that way, and then we continue with round 13. Round 14 will be worked in third loops only. So if you find making single crochet in the third loop difficult, you can refer to the hint for rounds 13, 14, 19, 20 and 29, 30 of the border in the Outlanding Stitch Companion to make working in those stitches easier. And round 13 would usually only be a single crochet round. I would just love to show you an alternative that you could use to close the gaps that we have now created by skipping so many stitches. See those gaps here, here, and here. So let's just find way to close them. Start with a single crochet, and that will also make it easier to work the third loops in round 14 then. So we're going to make a HDC in the top loops here, the top loops of the HDC, and also the top loops of the stitch that we skipped. So you've got 4 loops on the hook now. Then you pull the yarn through and lift it up a little bit so that you've got some height, and then make the HDC. So you bring it up a little bit higher so that it won't curl back, won't curl down. See that? So you've got a bit of a longer loop there. The next stitch was a single crochet, so we just work that as usual. And then we had the DC in the previous round, so we work that as well. Go into both of those loops and make a loose HDC. The next one was a treble, so we go in the top loops there and find the corresponding loops further down. Pull it up and make a loose HDC. And again, then we had the front post DC. Find the corresponding top loops there. And pull it up, HDC. And 2 more. Front post half treble. So we go around those with a HDC, and then there was another front post DC, top loops, and the corresponding loops of the stitch that we skipped behind this front post DC, HDC. And now I've got 2 single crochets, so there is nothing behind that was skipped. And here are 3 special stitches, so we've got another gap. So you can do that again. Find the top loops, corresponding loops of the stitch that was skipped, and work a HDC. Pull it up, pull the loop up, and you've got a loose HDC. And 1 more. There we go. And the last one, that was a front post DC. Pull it up so that you got the correct height. And then another 2 single crochet. Nothing skipped behind there, so we just work a normal single crochet. And if you want, you can do that on the other 5 as well. So this closes the gap. That is here, and it gives a little bit more definition than just working single crochet. It's just an alternative if you want to make it. We've always got 4 loops on the hook for these, and there's 1 more to go here. That was the DC, finding the corresponding stitches that were skipped, and then we had a single crochet, and then you could just go over with a single crochet because there's not really much of a gap, so let me just do that. And 1 more single crochet. So that would be your alternative round 13 if you wanted to do that. And I'm just going to do a quick beginning of the round just to show you the difference. So if you just work the single crochet, yeah, that's super duper easy. Easy peasy, super duper easy peasy. What happens then is that you keep the gap that is behind those special stitches. So let's have a look. So here is the gap. It stays there. Well, if you do the HDCs, you see you've got a definition there, and you close the gap. So that would be an alternative. Remember, this is supposed to represent the flag, the English flag, with the Union Jack. So this may help to bring that a little bit more forward. And also, it is quite easy to work in the third loops here. You see that? That's quite easy to work into. As I said, totally up to you, which way ever you work. Just work all the way around or mix and match as you like. And then slip stitch to close the round in the first single crochet of the starting corner. And that will be your round 13 done. We are now in round 14, where we're going to do the third loop single crochets. So start with a chain 1, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 2 corner space, and then let's see, we've got a front loop here, we've got a back loop here, and we've got a third loop here. That's the third loop, and you will notice as soon as I get to those HDCs like this one, it's very easy to get into those third loops. So here's another single crochet, and then we've got third loop in the HDC. Very easy to find and very easy to work into as well. So I'm going to leave the rest of this side and the rest of the other sides to you, because there's nothing else to show. It's really just the third loops, nothing else. And if you continue around and then close the round with a slip stitch, that will be your round 14 done. We are in round 15, starting it as usual with a chain 1, and then the corner single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 2 corner space. Now this round is very easy, just single crochet and single crochet in the back loop only. We start with a single crochet, then 1 back loop only, 5 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back loop only. Now we've got 4 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And here we have 3 single crochet in the back loop only, side by side. Another 4 single crochet, back loop only, 5 single crochet, back loop only, and there should be one stitch left for a single crochet. And this is the corner. You see, very quick, very easy. Follow on the other 3 sides, close with a slip stitch into the first single crochet of the starting corner, and let's meet for optional stitch marker placement. To place your stitch markers, find the 3 front loops. There is one right at the beginning. Then we've got a few more. There's one here. And then there were 3 side by side. Yeah, notice my band-aid. I've got really sharp knives. And I just can't. Well, it was an accident. It wasn't just being a bit stupid. It really was an accident. So 3 side by side, then there is one here and another one, so 7 altogether. So just finding those 3 front loops that are left over from the stitches that you made in back loop only, and use the same color for all of them in this round. I'm going to remove them for the next round, but yeah, this is where you place your stitch markers. Round 16 equally easy and quick as round 15. So after the corner we have again 1 single crochet, back loop only, 4 single crochet, 1, 2, 3 and 4, back loop only, 3 single crochet, 2, 3, back loop only, and then next we have 7 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. Back loop only, 3 single, 1, 2, 3, back loop only, 4 single crochet, back loop only, and the last stitch is again a single crochet at the corner, single crochet. There we go. Equally easy, equally quick as round 15. If you have several colors to use for as stitch markers, I recommend color B, color C, color D, which one that is for you. Color B goes in the first and the last stitch, or in the, not the stitch, but the free front loop. First and the last free front loop. Color C goes in the second from the starting corner, and the third free front loop from the opposite corner. And then color D goes in the remaining. So that would be the third from the starting corner and the second from the opposite corner. There we are. So that would be stitch marker placement in round 16 for rounds 17 and 18. In round 17, we're going to work in the stitch markers that you have in color D and color C, which were in my example the green and the orange stitch markers. But first we start with another single crochet and a single crochet in the back loop. And then we follow with 5 single crochet. That's it, 5 single crochet, and now we have a double treble plus 4 minus 2, and that would go in the green stitch marker, or respectively color D stitch marker that you used. So 3 times yarn over for the double treble, starting to count from the next stitch, which is this one. We go 1, 2, 3, 4 ahead, and then 1, 2 rounds down. So here's the free front loop in which we work a double treble. So that's the double treble. We skip the next stitch, and then we work 3 single crochet. And now we're going back into the front loop. That is 4 stitches back and 2 rounds below, or in the front loop, yeah, that is 4 stitches back and 2 rounds below the next stitch. This is the next stitch, so we go back 1, 2, 3 and 4, and we go back down 1, 2 rounds. So that's that free front loop. Yarn over 3 times. It would have, if you use stitch markers, a stitch marker in color C, orange in my example. And 3 times. That's the double treble. Now we skip this stitch and we continue with 7 single crochet. Five and 2 more. So the next stitch is above a free front loop. Again, a double treble plus 4 minus 2. This last one was a double treble minus 4 minus 2. So we go ahead from the next stitch 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches and minus 1 minus 2 rounds. Here is our front loop. Again, that would be color G, which was green in my example. We skip the stitch behind here, 3 single crochet, and from here we make a double treble in the front loop. That is 4 stitches back and 2 rounds below. We know that's this one. So going back, and if you keep all those loops pretty close together, you can avoid having a big loop here at the top, if that is of any concern for you. Then we skip another stitch and we work 5 single crochet, one single crochet in the back loop only, and another single crochet, which is the last stitch before the corner, and here is the corner. So we're going to make that cross here. Well, very simple, just double treble forwards and backwards, and single crochet in back loop at the beginning and at the end. So repeat, close the round, and meet me for the stitch marker placement. If you have another color, color E, you can place it in this free front loop at the beginning here. That's one. And in that one at the end, that was the second last stitch where we made a single crochet in back loop only. So you could use those, or use color A again if you like, because it's further away, whichever works for you, or use yarn scraps, hair pins, everything goes. So just those two for round 18. We start with chain 1 and corner, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 2 corner space. Our first stitch is a half treble plus 2 minus 2 in the front loop, same like we did last time. Further down here, we count from the next stitch 1, 2 ahead, and 1, 2 rounds down, and here is our front loop. Working a front loop, working a half treble into this front loop. Now we skip the next stitch, and then we have a single crochet. Next, we make a DC 0 minus 2. A DC in the stitch that is below minus 1, minus 2. Here is our front loop, which is the same front loop as the one in which we worked a half treble, skipping the stitch behind here. Then we have a treble 0 minus 3. 0 minus 1 minus 2 minus 3. Here is our front loop. And following a double treble, 0 minus 4. 0 minus 1 minus 2 minus 3 minus 4. Here is our front loop. So the half treble goes in a rose colored stitch marker or color E. The DC goes in the same, also color E. The treble goes into the stitch marker in color B, which in my case was red, and the double treble goes into the stitch marker color A, which in my case was blue. Now we need to remember that we need to skip the right amount of stitches, and we skipped one behind the half treble here, then we had a single crochet, and then we made 3 more stitches. Now we skip 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and we work a single crochet in the next, followed by 4 more single crochets. So 5 single crochet all together here. Now we've got another free front loop. If you used a stitch marker, it would have color A, which in my case was blue. We're working a double treble, 0 minus 4 in front loop. We go down 1, can't really see it because it's covered by this cross, but if you just want to believe me, 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds, and this is our free front loop. So we work into this front loop here, and if you want to double check, you will find that this stitch is in the middle of this crossing. So you've got the double treble here, 1 stitch, and above the 3rd you worked into this stitch, into the double treble, and then the next, and this is the stitch that we skipped. This is the middle stitch of all those. We skip the stitch behind and we work 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and 4 stitches. 0 minus 1, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4. Here we go. A double treble and 2 more in the next free front loop. That means 1 in each of the next 2, and 1 more double treble. Easy to find because they're all side by side. So now we made 3 stitches, and now we skip 3. 1, 2, 3, and start to make 4 single crochet. 1, 2, 3. The 3rd is in the top of the double treble here, and the last one. And again we have a double treble, 0 minus 4. If you use stitch markers, that again will be 1 in color A, which in my case was blue. We skip the stitch behind and continue with 5 single crochet. And now we go backwards. Our next stitch again is a double treble. Whoops, 1, 2, 3. Double treble, 0 minus 4. This is the first of those front loops which would have color A stitch marker. 3. Okay. The next stitch is a treble, 0 minus 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Here's our free front loop, and it would have stitch marker in color B, which in my case was red. Following, is a DC 0 minus 2 in front loop, and the DC had a color E, which in my case was Rose stitch marker. Oops, sorry, DC is only 1 yarn over. A DC in front loop. Now we had 3 stitches here. We need to skip 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. 1 stitch skipped per special stitch. And the next is a single crochet. And the last stitch is going to be a half treble minus 2 in front loop, which goes in the same front loop in which we just made the DC. Half treble minus 2 in front loop. And of course we skip the stitch behind the half treble, which brings us directly into the corner. So you see here we've got a mini version of the Union check. This is a mini version of the Union check, always simplified, and yeah, just really simplified. And we had a half treble single, then the DC treble double treble, then single crochet, then again a double treble, single crochet, 3 double trebles, single crochet, double treble again, single crochet, and then double treble, treble, DC, single crochet, and then the half treble backwards angular. That's all. It's not that complicated. Continue on the other 3 sides, or repeat on the other 3 sides, and close the round with a slip stitch into the first single crochet of the starting corner. And then we continue with round 19. Tell you what, let's make a crochet alongside. Okay, let's get started with a half treble plus 2 minus 2, which goes in the first front loop here. Skip the first stitch, the one behind the half treble, single crochet in the next. Next is a DC in the same front loop in which we work the half treble. Then a treble, 0 minus 3 in the next free front loop. Followed by a double treble, 0 minus 4, again in the next free front loop. Now we make sure we skip 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and start to work 5 single crochet in the next 5 stitches, meaning 1 single crochet in each of the next 5. Then another double treble in the free front loop here, 4 rounds below. Oops, what happened here? Skips the stitch behind the double treble, 4 single crochet. 3 and 4. A double treble in each of the front loop, 4 rounds below. 3 double treble, 0 minus 4. So we skip 3 stitches behind, 1, 2, 3, and work 4 single crochet. Another double treble, 0 minus 4 in this free front loop that is behind the crossing of those 2 double trebles from the previous round. And we finish with 5 single crochet. Three, 4, and 5. And then we have a double treble, 0 minus 4 in the first lowest free front loop. Then a treble, 0 minus 3 in the next, 1 round higher. Then a DC, 0 minus 4, again the next and 1 round higher. And then skipping 1, 2, 3 stitches, make a single crochet in the next, and a half treble back in the last free front loop we worked into. That was the one with the DC. Skip the last stitch here, and we are in the corner. So if you follow this crochet along side, then you only have 2 more to go. Slip stitch in the first single crochet of the starting corner and meet me in round 19. Round 19 you get to make some choices, but let's first start with the corner, chain 1 and then the corner, and then 1 single crochet. Now one choice is to work the complete round with single crochet only, like we did here in round 13, if that was your choice. The other choice, or the other option, would be to work the HDCs like we did as an alternative here in round 13. So let's do the alternative, because I am pretty confident that all of you are able to do a single crochet round. Let's just look at the alternative again. So we yarn over and we make HDCs. So pull up the loop so that it's at a good height, and then HDC. See, the next was a single crochet, so there is nothing to go into. And then there is another HDC option. So we just grab the top loops like we did before, pull up the loop, and make a HDC, a loose HDC. Find the free loops from the previous round of the stitches that we skipped, and then we work into them. So we get a little bit of an edge here. And then single crochet or single crochet like we used to. So this option, or this alternative, would basically only apply in case of a special stitch, like so. And, oh, I forgot to mention, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention the round 20 is going to be a third loop round again, so same as here, when we work into the third loops. So if you had a special way of making round 13, maybe consider to apply this to round 19 as well, so that it's easier for you to work into the third loops in round 20. And for that we found that the HDC was a great option. And whenever there is a single crochet, in order to have it easy to work into those third loops, just make them a bit looser than you normally would. Or use one of the other methods that is explained in the Outlanding Stitch Compendium. So we just continue with the single crochet here. And there is that double HDC again. Let's call this a double HDC, because we go in 2 sets of top loops, 2 sets of loops. And there is single crochet again, and another double HDC, single crochet into the single crochets, double HDC again, two, and a third one. So kind of a combination of DCBB to close the gap and to bring the stitch a little bit forward, and a single crochet, so not to get too much height, and another single crochet here. And if you want, one more double HDC to close this gap here behind the last special stitch from the previous round, and then the last stitch is a single crochet, and we are in the corner here. So as I said, the alternative would be to work single crochet only, like we did here, and like we did in the sample here in this round, and you would get this kind of edge, while this is a little bit more set back. It's a bit more three-dimensional. You see that this one comes out while this one is a bit flatter. So either way, whichever way you choose, just continue with your preferred choice on the other 3 sides, and then slip stitch into the first single crochet of the starting corner. I'm going to be with you for an invisible join if that's what you would like to do. In order to make an invisible join, I've made the last stitch here. I'm going to cut the yarn with a bit of generosity, pull it through, and then thread the needle here. And then, instead of going into the next stitch, I would usually go in the stitch after, but there is no stitch, there is only a chain. So I go into the top loops of this chain, from front to back, pull the yarn through and pull it just as much as the other stitches as well. And then I go back into the top of the stitch where I came from, and I also grab the third loop. It gives a bit more security, and then I just pull as much as I need to make this invisible join as big as the other stitches. So from the top you can't really see a difference. From the front you can see that this invisible join sits directly above the other stitch. See there? That is the first single crochet of the starting corner. So that's the invisible join, and then you just weave in the ends, and then you can join with a new color, which is what I'm going to do for the next round, for round 20, which is either the last round of this square or the first round of the border. In order to start the next round with a standing stitch, I'm just going to make a slip knot, normal slip knot, keep a bit of a loop, choose any corner and attach the yarn and pull through. So I've got a standing single crochet, then I chain 2 and another single crochet into the corner. And as I said already, we're working in the third loop again. So here we've got the third loop, and you will find it is quite easy to work in third loops, especially here of the HTCs. Or if you have loose single crochets, that's well too. So I'm going to leave you to it to continue with the third loops all the way around, and then to continue with the border, just slip stitch in the first single crochet of this starting corner here, or to make this your last round, the best method would be to again use the invisible join, and then your square is done. Square 12, Sassenachs, the final square of season 1. I hope you join me for season 2, and I will see you there.